The grand meeting hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as the emergency alerts flashed across every screen. The gathered representatives, each from worlds of gentle breezes and moderate temperatures, watched in horror as another peaceful colony fell to the Silicon invaders. Ambassador Green, a tall being with silvery skin who came from a world of eternal spring, gripped the edges of his hover chair. 3 worlds lost in just 2 standard months, he whispered to the silent chamber. Nothing in our history has prepared us for this. The Silicon beings had emerged from the dark space between galaxies 6 months ago. They weren't interested in talking. They didn't want resources. They simply arrived, conquered, and transformed every world they touched into crystal wastelands. Our weapons are useless, announced Director White, the head of the Council's defense force. Her delicate features showed the strain of countless sleepless cycles. The Silicon beings don't have bodies like ours. Energy weapons pass through them. Physical projectiles become part of their structure. They're immune to all our standard tactics. The Council members, evolved for diplomacy and intellectual pursuits, had never faced a threat like this. Their species had all developed on peaceful worlds with stable environments and few natural predators. Violence was almost unknown in their cultures. Now, faced with a truly violent species, they found themselves helpless. In the back of the chamber, Junior Diplomatic Officer Brown stood up. As the youngest member of the Council staff, he rarely spoke during these sessions, but he had spent the last year studying the newly discovered world, and he couldn't stay quiet any longer. "There might be a solution," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "but you're not going to like it." The Council chamber turned to face him. Ambassador Green gestured for him to continue. 2 standard years ago, our deep space surveys found a world we classified as uninhabitable, Brown explained, pressing buttons on his datapad. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a blue and green planet racked by storms. The surface gravity is crushing. The atmosphere is thick with oxygen, making fires common. The temperature swings from freezing to boiling. The entire planet is constantly trying to kill its inhabitants. Yes, Director White interrupted. "We remember. That's why we marked it for observation only. No species could evolve intelligence in such a hostile environment." "But they did," Brown said quietly. "And not just intelligence. They're strong. They're fast. Their bodies can withstand incredible damage. They call themselves humans, and their world is Earth." He pressed another button, and new images appeared. Humans climbing frozen mountains, swimming in raging seas, running across burning deserts, fighting creatures twice their size, building cities in places that should be uninhabitable. "They're Deathworlders," gasped one council member. "Savages." "Yes," Brown agreed. "But they're savages who might be able to fight the Silicon beings. Their bodies are incredibly dense by our standards. They can generate massive physical force. They actually enjoy testing themselves against hostile environments. And most importantly," he paused for effect, "they understand violence. They've spent their entire history fighting. Their environment, their predators, and each other." The council chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Working with Deathworlders was unthinkable. Their very existence challenged everything the council believed about civilization. "You're suggesting we ask these humans to fight for us?" Ambassador Green asked carefully. "I'm suggesting they might be our only hope," Brown replied. "Look at the data. They regularly survive conditions that would kill any of us instantly. They've developed technologies specifically for combat. They even have special warriors they call soldiers who train specifically for fighting." Director White studied the images carefully. "How do we know they won't turn on us?" "We don't," Brown admitted. "But they also have something else we've never mastered. They understand mercy. They fight, yes, but they also heal. They destroy, but they also protect. They're violent, but they channel that violence with rules and purposes." The chamber fell silent again as the council members considered this impossible choice: contact a species of Deathworlders or watch their civilization fall to the silicon beings. Finally, Ambassador Green spoke. "Officer Brown, prepare a first contact team. May the stars help us all." And so, in their darkest hour, the mighty Galactic Council placed their hopes in the very thing they feared most, a species that had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. They just prayed the humans wouldn't kill them first. Captain James Miller stood at the military base's observation deck, watching the alien ship descend from the clouds. The massive vessel moved with impossible grace for its size, touching down without making a sound. He took a deep breath of Earth's thick air, knowing it would be toxic to their visitors. "Remember," General Roberts said beside him, "no sudden movements. These aliens evolved on worlds with 1/3 our gravity. They're fragile." Miller nodded, running a hand through his short gray hair. At 45, he'd seen plenty of strange things in Earth's global defense force, but this was different. Humanity's first official alien contact wasn't going according to any of their plans. The ship's door opened with a soft hiss. 3 tall, willowy figures emerged, wearing what looked like mechanical support suits to help them move in Earth's crushing gravity. Their silvery skin gleamed in the morning sun. "By the stars," one of them gasped through their translation device, staggering slightly. "How do they survive here?" A sudden gust of wind made the aliens grab for their support rails. Miller fought back a smile. It was just a light breeze by Earth standards. "Welcome to Earth," Miller said, keeping his voice quiet and gentle. "I'm Captain James Miller." "Ambassador Green," the lead alien said, his mechanical suit whirring as he gave a slight bow. "With me are Director White and Officer Brown." He paused as a distant rumble of thunder made them all flinch. "Is your atmosphere always so violent?" "This is actually a calm day," Miller replied. "Would you prefer to continue inside?" The aliens quickly agreed. As they walked to the base's conference room, Miller noticed them staring at his casual movements. He realized that every step he took in Earth's gravity probably looked like an impossible feat to them. Inside the conference room, Miller poured himself a cup of coffee. The smell made the aliens step back in alarm. "You're consuming a toxic substance," Officer Brown exclaimed, checking some kind of sensor. "Caffeine's perfectly safe for humans," Miller explained. "In fact, many of us need it to start our day." He took a deliberate sip, and the aliens watched in fascination as he didn't die. "Remarkable," Director White murmured. "Your species truly evolved to process poisons." "Ambassador," Miller said, setting down his cup, "I mean no disrespect, but you didn't break your observation protocols just to study our biology. Why are you really here?" The aliens exchanged looks. Finally, Ambassador Green spoke. "We need your help. Our worlds are under attack by an enemy we cannot fight. We believe that humans, that your unique abilities might be our only hope." Miller listened as they explained about the silicon beings. With each word, the aliens seemed to grow more desperate. They showed recordings of crystalline creatures that moved like living mountains, immune to energy weapons and conventional attacks. "Let me understand this," Miller said when they finished. "You want humans to fight an enemy that conquered 3 of your worlds in 2 months." "Yes," Brown admitted. "We know it's much to ask, but—" A warning siren cut through the air. The aliens jumped in shock, but Miller calmly checked his phone. "Just the weekly emergency system test," he explained. "But you should understand something. That siren, we built those because we needed to warn each other about real dangers. Tornadoes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions. Earth throws these things at us regularly, and we survive. We adapt. We fight back." He stood up, his full height making the aliens shrink back slightly. "You're right that we understand violence, but we also understand protection. Fighting isn't just about destroying things. It's about defending what matters." Looking at the fearsome human before them, the aliens finally understood why they had come. Here was a creature shaped by constant challenge, standing straight and strong in gravity that should have crushed him, casually drinking poison and talking about fighting natural disasters like they were minor inconveniences. "Will you help us?" Ambassador Green asked. Miller smiled. "I'll need to talk to my superiors, but personally, I think it's time to show the galaxy what humans can do." For the first time since the Silicon beings appeared, the aliens felt something new: hope. They had found their Deathworlder champion, and the real fight was about to begin. The training facility echoed with sounds that made Ambassador Green's skin crawl. Humans were running, jumping, and fighting in the massive indoor space, their heavy footsteps thundering against the floor. The alien delegation watched from a safely reinforced observation room. Captain Miller stood beside his newly assembled team. 20 of Earth's finest soldiers from different military branches around the world. They were testing the alien weapons, but not in the way the Council had expected. "These energy rifles are too light," said Lieutenant Jack, the team's weapons expert. He was bench-pressing 3 of them at once, much to the aliens' horror. "We need to add some weight if we want accurate aim under real gravity. And the triggers are too small," added Sergeant Rock, her powerful hands making the delicate alien weapon look like a toy, designed for those thin fingers of theirs. Miller watched as his team systematically took apart and rebuilt the advanced alien weapons. The Council members had nearly fainted when the humans started modifying their perfect technology, but Miller knew his people needed tools that matched their strength. "Impossible," Director White gasped as she watched Master Surgeon Stone run up a vertical wall, using the alien gravity assist boots. The power source should have burned out instantly. "Human bodies are incredibly efficient at using energy," Officer Brown explained, checking his readings. "They're doing things with our technology that we never imagined possible." In the training area, the team was now practicing combat scenarios. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans easily carried wounded teammates, each weighing over 200 pounds, while running at full speed. They climbed, crawled, and fought in conditions that would have killed most Council species instantly. "Watch this," Miller said, pointing to Private West. The young soldier was demonstrating their new combat technique. She activated the modified alien shield technology, while another team member hit her with enough force to crack concrete. The shield didn't just stop the blow. It absorbed the energy and redirected it. "We've never seen our shields used that way," Ambassador Green admitted. "The force involved would shatter our bones." "That's the advantage of evolving on a death world," Miller explained. "We're built to take punishment. And now we're combining that with your technology." The real breakthrough came during their first test against a silicon being simulation. The Council scientists had created a perfect hologram based on their encounters. The human team approached it differently than any Council species had before. Instead of running from its crystalline form, they got close. They used their natural strength to create vibrations that disrupted its structure. Their shouts, loud enough to stun most Council species, seemed to actually damage the silicon creature. "Did you see that?" Officer Brown exclaimed, his sensors going wild. "The frequencies their bodies can naturally produce. They're in perfect range to disrupt silicon-based life forms." Miller smiled as his team continued to discover new ways to fight the enemy. They weren't just stronger or tougher than the Council species. They were built perfectly to counter this specific threat. Years of evolving to survive Earth's punishing conditions had created natural weapons against the silicon beings. "There's something else you should see," Miller said, leading the aliens to a sealed room. Inside, doctors were studying human blood samples exposed to silicon being fragments. "Remarkable," the lead doctor said. "The human stress hormone, adrenaline, creates a natural barrier against silicon being influence. They can't be controlled like other species." Ambassador Green watched all this with growing hope. These humans, these Deathworlders, were turning everything they knew about warfare upside down. They didn't just fight with strength. They fought with innovation, teamwork, and an unshakable determination. "Are you ready to deploy?" he asked Miller. The captain looked at his team, now working together like a well-oiled machine. "We're not just ready," he said. "We're looking forward to it. Time to show these silicon beings what happens when you threaten people under humanity's protection." For the first time in their history, the Council species were glad to have Deathworlders on their side. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth's harsh conditions had created the perfect warriors for this fight. The garden world of Paradise turned out to be anything but paradise when Miller's team arrived. The once beautiful planet, known for its floating flowers and gentle pink skies, was partially covered in sharp crystal formations. The silicon beings had already taken over half the planet. "This air's so thin," Sergeant Rock complained, checking her enhanced breathing mask. "How did anyone live here?" "Remember, this was a paradise for them," Miller replied, leading his team from their landing craft. "No storms, no earthquakes, nothing trying to eat you. Perfect for the Council species." The remaining Council survivors watched from their sealed bunker as the human team moved across the crystalline landscape. To them, the humans looked like giants in their modified combat suits, each step carrying enough force to crack the ground. "They're approaching the silicon being nest," Officer Brown reported from the command center. "By the stars. They're running towards it." The first silicon being emerged from its crystal fortress like a mountain coming to life. It towered 30 feet high, its crystalline body gleaming in the pink sunlight. Previous Council forces had flooded the site. The humans charged straight at it. "Strike pattern Alpha," Miller shouted. His team split into 3 groups, surrounding the creature. The silicon being tried to extend its crystal spikes, a move that had killed countless Council soldiers. But the humans were ready. Sergeant Stone activated his modified gravity boots, leaping impossibly high. The silicon being tried to track his movement, leaving its base exposed. Private West and Lieutenant Jack hit the creature's lower section with vibration weapons they'd crafted from modified alien tech. The sound that followed made the watching Council members cover their ears. The humans had discovered that certain frequencies could shatter the silicon being's structure. Their weapons combined these sounds with physical force that only humans could generate. "It's working," Director White exclaimed as cracks appeared in the silicon being's body. "They're actually hurting it." The creature tried to retreat, but Master Sergeant Stone landed on its upper section, driving a resonant spike deep into its crystal form. The silicon being shuddered, its structure unable to handle the combined assault of sound, vibration, and raw physical force. With a sound like breaking glass multiplied 1,000 times, the silicon being shattered. Its fragments fell like razor rain, but the humans' modified shields held strong. "First target down," Miller reported calmly, as if they hadn't just accomplished something the entire Council had thought impossible. Moving to Sector 2. The next few hours proved why humans were the perfect warriors for this fight. When their shields failed, they kept going. When their weapons overheated, they used their own voices and strength. When the terrain became too dangerous for vehicles, they continued on foot. The Council species watched in awe as the human team systematically cleared one sector after another. The silicon beings tried to adapt, but they couldn't counter the sheer variety of attacks the humans employed. Every time the crystal creatures developed a defense against one tactic, the humans would switch to another. "They're not just strong," Ambassador Green observed. "They're clever, creative. They keep changing their approach. That's how we survived Earth," Miller explained during a brief rest period. His team was eating ration bars that would have poisoned any Council species. When one solution doesn't work, try another. Never give up. Never stop adapting. By the time the pink sun set, the human team had destroyed 12 silicon beings and secured a large safe zone around the bunker. They suffered injuries, burns, cuts, even broken bones, but they kept fighting. The Council's medical staff was shocked to discover that human bodies could actually repair such damage naturally. "This is just the beginning," Miller told the amazed council members as his team set up defense positions for the night. "Tomorrow we take back more ground, and we don't stop until your world is free." For the first time since the silicon beings appeared, the council species understood why Earth's harsh conditions had been a gift, not a curse. These humans weren't just fighting for them. They were showing the galaxy what it meant to be truly unstoppable. The silicon beings had never faced anything like humanity, and humanity was just getting started. After 3 days of constant fighting on Paradise, Miller's team made a discovery that changed everything. They had cornered a smaller silicon being in what used to be a council garden, when Private West noticed something strange. "Captain," she called out, lowering her weapon. "Watch what happens when I do this." She stomped her foot hard against the ground, sending vibrations through the crystal structure. The silicon being actually moved away. Miller's eyes narrowed. "Everyone, boots on maximum power. Stomp on my mark." He raised his hand, then dropped it sharply. Now, 20 pairs of gravity-enhanced boots hit the ground at once. The silicon being didn't just move away, it cracked. "They're afraid of vibrations," Lieutenant Jack said, quickly adjusting his sensors. "Not just any vibrations, specific frequencies, the kind that could shatter their crystal structure." Miller immediately called for the council scientists. Officer Brown arrived with his research team, their delicate instruments carried by humans because they were too heavy in Paradise's gravity. "Fascinating," Brown said, analyzing the readings. "The frequencies that humans can naturally produce, through physical impact, vocal cords, even your heartbeats at certain speeds, they're all in the range that disrupts silicon being structures." The discovery led to a burst of innovation. The human team worked with council engineers to develop new weapons. They created sonic grenades that needed human strength to activate. The devices were too heavy for council species to lift, but perfect for human hands. "Your bodies are like living weapons against them," Director White observed, watching Stone test the new sonic grenades. The explosion of sound waves made nearby crystal formations vibrate dangerously. But the real breakthrough came when Sergeant Rock was singing during maintenance duty. Her deep voice, amplified by the modified alien tech in her suit, made nearby crystal fragments dance. "That's it," Miller exclaimed. "We don't just fight with our weapons. We fight with everything we are." He gathered his team and explained his new plan. The next encounter with silicon beings proved the theory. The human team approached in formation, their boots sending rhythmic vibrations through the ground. Then they did something that confused both the silicon beings and the watching council members. They began to sing. The sound of 20 human voices, enhanced by their suits and perfectly tuned to the resonant frequency of crystal, hit the silicon beings like a physical force. The creatures actually retreated from the sonic assault. "I can't believe it," Ambassador Green whispered. "They're using music as a weapon." "Not just music," Brown corrected, checking his instruments. "They're using their entire bodies, the vibrations from their movement, their voices, even their modified weapons. It's all working together." The Council's combat experts, watching from orbit, were amazed. The humans had turned what seemed like primitive physical abilities into sophisticated weapons. Every stomp, every shout, every movement was calculated to disrupt the silicon being's structure. "We've been thinking about this wrong," Miller explained during the debriefing. "We shouldn't try to fight them like traditional enemies. We need to fight them like we fight natural disasters on Earth, with preparation, understanding, and using nature's own forces against them." The council scientists worked through the night, studying how human biology naturally produced the frequencies that hurt the silicon beings. They discovered that even human laughter could crack crystal at the right pitch. "Your species," Ambassador Green said to Miller, "evolved on a world that tried to kill you every day. You learned to survive against crushing gravity, extreme temperatures, and constant disasters. Now those same adaptations make you the perfect weapon against an enemy we thought was invincible." Miller looked at his team, each member already practicing with the new sonic weapons and perfecting their resonant frequencies. "We're not weapons," he corrected. "We're survivors. And now we're going to teach the silicon beings what happens when you threaten people under our protection." The galaxy was about to witness a new kind of warfare, where the very things that made humans primitive, in the Council's eyes, would become their greatest strengths. The silicon beings had never faced opponents who could shake them to their core. Literally. The real fight was just beginning. The massive fleet of Council ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel above Crystal Prime, the first world taken by the silicon beings. In the lead ship, Captain Miller watched the crystalline surface below. What was once a peaceful farming world now looked like a planet made of glass and sharp edges. "All human teams, report in," Miller commanded through the communication system. Not just his original 20 soldiers anymore. Now 500 of Earth's finest were ready for the largest counterattack in Council history. "Team Alpha, ready." Lieutenant Jack's voice was steady. "Team Beta, ready." Sergeant Rock sounded eager. "Team Gamma, ready." Master Sergeant Stone was calm as always. One by one, all 25 teams reported in. Each dropship carried 20 humans equipped with the latest sonic weapons, modified alien tech, and most importantly, their natural Deathworlder abilities. "Look at them," Director White whispered to Ambassador Green. "They're excited about going into battle." Any Council species would be trembling in fear. "Begin Operation Earthquake," Miller ordered. The dropships descended through the crystal planet's atmosphere, each one heavily armored to protect against crystal spikes. The silicon beings noticed them immediately. Huge crystalline forms rose from the surface, their sharp edges glinting in the starlight. But this time, the Council fleet didn't retreat. Hit them with everything. Miller shouted as the dropships landed. "Sound pattern Alpha." 500 humans jumped onto the crystal surface. Their gravity-enhanced boots struck the ground at exactly the same moment, sending powerful vibrations through the entire area. The silicon beings actually stumbled. Sonic grenades now. The air filled with the screaming sound of perfectly tuned sonic weapons. Crystal structures began to crack. The silicon beings tried to fight back, sending crystal spears through the air. But the humans were ready. Their modified shields deflected the attacks while they pressed forward, their very footsteps weakening the enemy's structure. "They're retreating." Officer Brown reported from the command ship. "The vibrations are too much for them." But the silicon beings had one last trick. They merged together, forming a massive crystal mountain that reached toward the sky. "All teams," Miller commanded. "Formation Thunder." The humans arranged themselves in concentric circles. The outer circles began to stomp in rhythm, creating powerful vibrations. The middle circles activated their sonic weapons, and the inner circle did something that made the Council members stare in amazement. They began to sing. The battle hymn, amplified by their suits and perfectly tuned to crystal-shattering frequencies, rose above the sound of combat. 500 human voices joined together, producing sound waves that visibly distorted the air. The giant crystal formation began to shake. Cracks appeared across its surface. The silicon beings tried to maintain their merged form, but they couldn't withstand the combined assault of vibration, sound, and pure physical force. "Push harder," Miller shouted. "Remember Earth. Remember every earthquake, every storm, every disaster we survived. Show them what Deathworlders can do." The humans increased their effort. Their boots cracked the crystal ground. Their voices reached frequencies that would have killed any Council species. Their weapons poured out waves of destructive sound. With a sound like 1,000 windows breaking at once, the giant crystal form shattered. Fragments rained down, but the humans stood their ground, protected by their shields and their natural toughness. "First zone secured," Miller reported calmly. "Moving to Sector 2. The Council fleet watched in awe as the human teams systematically cleared the planet. Where their ships and weapons had failed, these Deathworlders were succeeding through sheer force and clever tactics. "We should have found them sooner," Ambassador Green said, watching another crystal formation fall to human assault. All this time, we thought their world's harshness was a curse. Instead, it created exactly what the galaxy needed. By the end of the planetary day, the first taken world was free again. The humans had suffered injuries, but none had fallen. They were already preparing for the next planet, ready to continue until every captured world was liberated. The Silicon beings were learning a hard lesson. Never anger a species that evolved on a death world. Because when humans fight back, they don't stop until they win. 3 months after the Battle of Crystal Prime, Captain Miller stood in the Grand Meeting Hall of the Galactic Council. The same room where Officer Brown had first suggested asking humans for help now held the largest gathering of species in Council history. Every surviving civilization had come to witness this historic moment. The Silicon beings were gone, driven back to their home dimension through a massive portal they created. The last battle had been the most spectacular. 5,000 humans from Earth's military forces had joined together to create a sonic wave so powerful it had forced the invaders to retreat. Captain Miller, Ambassador Green announced, his voice carrying through the vast chamber. Please step forward. Miller moved to the center of the room. Even after all these months, he noticed how the council species still watched his heavy footsteps with a mixture of fear and amazement. But now there was something else in their eyes. Respect. When we first discovered Earth, Green continued, we called it a death world. We thought no true civilization could arise in such hostile conditions. We were wrong. He gestured to a large display showing Earth, with its raging oceans, active volcanoes, and powerful storms. What we saw as obstacles, you saw as challenges. What we considered impossible conditions, you called home. Director White stepped forward, holding a crystal box. Inside was a piece of the Silicon being's original structure, now harmless. Our scientists studied this fragment. We finally understand why you were the perfect defenders against this threat. Your world's gravity gave you the strength to fight. Its harsh conditions taught you to adapt. Its constant challenges made you innovative. Even your bodies naturally produced the frequencies that could defeat our enemy. Officer Brown, now promoted to Senior Diplomatic Officer, raised his hand. The chamber fell silent. The Council has voted. For the first time in our history, we are offering full membership to a Deathworlder species. Humanity will have a permanent seat on the Council. Miller looked at his team members scattered throughout the room. They had all received medals, both from Earth and the Council. But this was something bigger. There's more, Ambassador Green said. We request permission to establish training programs with human instructors, not to make us warriors like you. We know that's impossible, but to learn your resilience, your adaptability, your way of facing challenges. And Director White added, we want to study Earth's conditions, not to change them, as we once thought needed to be done, but to understand how such a harsh world created exactly what the galaxy needed. Miller stepped up to the speaking platform. The council members leaned forward, still amazed that a being could move so easily in their high-gravity suits. When you first came to Earth, he said, you called us Deathworlders like it was a bad thing. But being a Deathworlder doesn't just mean being strong or tough. It means never giving up. It means finding solutions where others see only problems. It means protecting those who need help, no matter the cost. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of dozens of different species. We didn't fight the Silicon beings because we love violence. We fought because someone had to stand up and say, no further. That's what Earth taught us. When the storm comes, you don't run. You face it, you adapt, and you protect those who can't protect themselves. Ambassador Green raised his hands. The age of isolation is over. Together, we are stronger. Earth's strength and the Council's wisdom, united at last. The chamber erupted in sounds of approval from every species. Humans throughout the room stood tall, proud not of their victory in battle, but of what it represented. They had proved that being the Deathworlder wasn't a curse. It was a responsibility to protect others. As Miller looked at the celebration around him, he smiled. The galaxy had feared humans because they came from a world that tried to kill them every day. Now they understood. Earth hadn't tried to kill humanity. It had prepared them. Prepared them for the day when the galaxy would need someone tough enough, strong enough, and determined enough to face the impossible and win. The Deathworlders had become the galaxy's greatest hope, and they would always be ready when they were needed again.